Hey everyone, I'm April. Nice to have you here. Just wanted to say a little bit about what I do. If your friends have directed you here or you found me through an article or something else, I'm really glad to have you. So I'll just talk a little bit about myself and then we're going to do a low back tune-up. So you can call it an emergency tune-up. Maybe somebody's directed you here because you're having some low back issues. And then you can kind of see what I do and see if what we could do together in the future might work for you. So if you've ever done yoga or practiced yoga, just forget about all of that. That's not what we do here, even though we really do take the bigger word yoga, which means union. The word yoga comes from our word yoke, and it means union, and that's what we're doing. We're kind of doing this together as we move through. We're yoking all of ourselves. So what that means is that we identify patterns in our bodies, in our minds, in our breath, and then we just slowly unwind those patterns. Those patterns are beautiful because those patterns are a book of ourselves. Our story is written in the fibers of our bodies, which is amazing. So when we understand that, we can honor where our bodies are, we can honor the discomforts that show up, and also we can move towards a more aligned place as we start to honor the wisdom of the body. So, got a little doggy back there. So, what we do together in our journeys is that we just look at our bodies and we see, oh, this shoulder might be higher. Oh, I've had a hip replacement. Oh, I've had a knee replacement. Oh, my jaw gets stuck. My breath isn't as full as I'd like it to be. And that's all the things that we work with. So if you have a human body, this class will work for you, whether you're a 25-year-old runner and you want to learn how to glide walk, or whether you've had a knee replacement recently, or whether you just want to get stronger in your upper body, or whether you want to reverse some bone loss. It's all really relevant. So welcome, and we are going to start standing because we're going to go immediately into working out some of our patterns. And you know, Zoom is a little bit clunky, so thank you for bearing with me. But we'll start standing. So come into your standing pose that may feel comfortable. So what I want you to do is not stand well. So a lot of times when we stand well, we get really rigid. We think rigidity may be standing well, and it's not. So what I want you to do is go into your habit, go into your pattern. Let's undo this. A lot of our low back pain comes from the way that we stand. So we're going to just work through and identify some things standing first. This will be a tune-up immediately. So what we're doing is we're unwinding patterns so that when we go through our days, we find we're standing better. And the architecture of standing is our blueprint for everything else we're doing when we're on our feet. Right? So we want to stand well and take this pressure off our low back. So notice how you're standing. Notice if you have more weight in one foot or the other. That's fine if you do. Also notice if your low back has a big curve in it. So if your low back is looking like this and you have your knees, I can really do this well, by the way, so I know about low backs. So if you, I'm over exaggerating, but actually this feels like the way I used to stand. So I had low back pain really early on in my life. I was 30 and I had a bulged disc and I really couldn't move for a good month. I had to crawl to the bathroom. It was really painful. So I do know about low back pain, and this is partly what causes it. So if you notice what's going on in my body, you see that my toes, this little dude came along, you see I'm gripping my toes. You may not see that, but I'll tell you I'm gripping my toes. My knees are hyperextended and locked out. My belly's spilling forward and not engaged. I have this really big curve in my low back. My shoulder blades are winging, or my shoulders are winging forward, and then I have, if I look forward, this thing called forward head posture, where my chin is very far forward. Now, when our chin is this far forward, it takes 10 pounds of pressure per inch on this vertebrae, the cervical spine vertebrae right here. So if my chin is 3 inches forward, I've got 30 pounds of pressure all the time on this one vertebrae. So we have some major neck pain. It's actually called forward head posture, FHP. The other thing that we have is that we have a lot of tightness in our low back, a lot of pressure. Do this if you're healthy. If you're not healthy, please don't do this. Do this dumping in thing if you're healthy. This is what I call it. So right now I'm just dumping into all of my joints. Our joints are not meant to hold us, all right? So we're starting to access the strength of our bodies here. So we can dump into our joints, but eventually our joints are gonna start to talk to us and we're gonna find a lot of discomfort. So watch for a moment and you can do this with me. So one small little thing here is that I just slightly bend my knees. Now it's not a bend, it's moving out of a hyperextension. So what goes on here is I'm making my legs strong and not rigid. Let me do it again. Watch my whole body come into better alignment. See how everything just lengthened up from that one tiny little cue. Now you might have found, let's do it one more time. If you can hyperextend your knees, go ahead and do it. And then put your hand on your low back and notice that just that slight adjustment takes some pressure off of your low back. Now I've still got some things to work on here. Take 3 fingers, take your other hand and place your finger on your belly button and find your 3 fingers directly underneath this. This is our power center. It's called the Dantian in Chinese. It means the golden stove. So we find that we start to move out of this, whether it's lifting our leg or whether it's doing weights. When we have this area engaged, our whole body lines up. So let me show you what that looks like and you can practice this with me. So let me go back into my pattern. I hyperextend my knees. Let me find my strong, not rigid legs and then watch this. It's like a button turned on. All I'm doing is pressing this power center up and in. So what goes on? Let's all dump back into our pattern. So what goes on here that when I press that power center up and in, all the strain of the low back gets taken away. Do it one more time so you can feel this. And again, don't do this if your low back is already a little bit compromised. This is for you to find out later. Okay, so one more time. Let's hyperextend, come into these patterns, forward, head, all that. We have to know what our patterns are in order for us to start to unwind them. If we don't know what our patterns are, then we have no ability to unwind. So one more time, knees, legs strong, not rigid, belly up and in, and notice how your neck lengthened there. Good, so find those 2 things, and if you're just starting to work with this, this is brain training. This training is for you to open your door, walk outside, and walk through the world more comfortably. Okay, so what you want to do is just think about those 2 things if you're just beginning with me. So legs strong, not rigid, belly up and in. This, if I could tell everyone in the world one thing about their posture, it would be that. It would be belly up and in, and everything would come online. Shoulders are relaxing down. So we're not, notice if you're up here by your ears. And again, if you're just starting to practice this, maybe you're just working with 2 things. We can only keep in our awareness a few things at once. Once we start to become more comfortable with those first couple of things, then we start to notice that we can add more. But if your shoulders are up by your ears, notice that, and then drop them down because your arms are under gravity. So let your arms just go where gravity's taking you. Keep your collarbones broad. So what you're doing is you're pressing your collarbones back with your chest. Now, everyone take 2 fingers here and put them alongside your cheekbones. Notice how they're diagonal. Notice how your cheekbones move up. They move really from the tip of your nose all the way up to the top of your ear trajectory. And so what you're doing is locating the back of your throat where the tip of your spine is, and then gently from the very back of your throat, move your head back and up on that diagonal. Notice how your chest rises and your collarbones broaden. You may need to re-engage your belly here. When you re-engage your belly, you also notice that the top of your glutes become engaged as well. So, reasons for low back pain is that we do something 1,000 times, and that 1,001st time, It's called the last straw effect. So we have to repattern ourselves. So picking up all of that, those are on some other videos that I do. Picking up, we learn to pick up well, we learn to do all this, but standing is something we do quite often throughout the day. So we can get really, really clear about standing. So 2 things, if you're having low back pain, 2 things to always remember. Let me add 3 things to always remember. Got to make your legs strong and not rigid, because if our legs are hyperextended, you have no space to bring your belly up and in. Okay, so your legs have to stay strong and not rigid and also not bent. And then belly moves up and in. So what we're doing is we're creating strong legs for our belly to be able to protect and stabilize the scaffolding of our spine. So we don't want to use the back muscles as our primary muscles. Everyone take your hands and feel your belly. There's a lot going on there, right? There's 5 layers of abdominals, and then we have this other muscle called the psoas. Our spines are meant to be stabilized from our front bodies, or not from our backs. So it's pushing, which is a much more efficient action than pulling. If you can start to understand that standing, then you're in a really good place. So let's go through it one more time here. Legs strong, not rigid, to give us space for our bellies to lift up and in. If you have to take your 3 fingers and find that power center, that dantian, it's called hara in Japanese. You don't have to know those words. They're just kind of fun. You can think about it as your power center button. That lifts up and in. Notice how your chest lifts up and out when you get that really engaged. And then shoulders drop down because our arms are just dropping us with gravity. Pressing from our chest back, and then find the back of your throat, and then again, take that in line with your cheekbone. Back and slightly diagonal so that your chin is parallel to the floor, but it's not creating all these ridges here. So you're creating a long back of the neck. Good. Shake that out. Let's get into our joints a little bit. Step apart here if this feels okay, and we're going to take a nice resetting pose called what I like to call a windmill. Take your arms and just let them wobble. Let them be like noodles. So our shoulders are not directing our arms. Gravity is directing our arms here. And then we can turn from side to side. Notice how I'm coming up onto my opposite toe to protect my knee. So just let yourself come into these nice twists. This is a great resetting pose throughout your day. If you are experiencing low back pain, maybe you see if that you can do this, and if you can't, obviously don't do it, but you can revisit it later. And now start to turn if you haven't already. Keep your head turned towards my screen. So now you're noticing that you're getting a nice spiral line all the way up and down your body. All right, come back to center. And then we'll begin to move to the floor. So I'll give you a second to do that because I'm also going to change perspective with my camera, which will be a little clunky, but that will be how it is. So take your time to lie on your back on the floor. If you have, I should have mentioned this earlier, have a blanket or a block. So you can have a blanket and just have it folded like this. So it's like this and then that. We're going to work with that a little bit later in our low back. You may need 2 blankets, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So maybe you just start with 2 blankets. I'll give you a moment while I get myself settled as well. Okay, so we lie all the way on our backs, and we're going to come into what is maybe, I like to call this the most powerful pose in our human bodies. There are a lot of places I talk about this already. Suffice it to say, this is called constructive rest. Excuse me. And it's a really powerful psoas release. I'll talk about that muscle in other places. However, to find this, If you have low back things here, then I don't want you lifting your legs. But if you can, engage that power center, press your low back into the floor, lift your legs directly over your hips, knees directly over hips. Keep that shape and then drop your feet down. So if you've ever done yoga before, you're going to have a habit here of coming in too far. So I like to call the back of the legs, this is like a skyscraper. We're coming actually into more of a pyramid shape. Now, if you come into that pyramid shape and your ankles are up like this, then I want you to find that blanket, unwind it a little bit, and then make sure that you put it to the right place where your feet are touching something. So your feet may be flat to the ground. If they're not, go ahead and do this. Now, if your head, so we want to be resting on the bullseye of our head. If your chin is up, take the other blanket that you have and go ahead and place that under your head. The reason why is because we want to make sure that our chins are in line with our foreheads. There's a lot of reasons for that, but if you're up here like this, then go ahead and take a blanket and put it under your head and even out chin and forehead. Part of the reason here is that we don't want to open the throat up too much because it creates a lot of discomfort in our nervous system. It takes us into a fight or flight state. So we're getting out of our fight or flight state so that we can work on our low back. So constructive rest. Ooh, I just had an adjustment in my own back. I like to take my arms and elbows out to the side and rest my hands on my rib cage. That allows, you can see right here, that allows my shoulder to relax down. You may be out here, you may be here, your palms may be down, your thumbs may be up. Your focus here is how can you relax this shoulder down, both shoulders down. Maybe that big deep breath naturally comes through, which is really powerful and profound. Now, you can practice this pose, especially if you've been driving or sitting, you can practice this pose for as long as you want. This is one of our most profound poses because it allows our bodies to rest. Now, you may need to practice this pose. This may feel really uncomfortable right now, and that's also fine. We have a lot of spirals in our bodies. We have a lot of habits. This is one of the poses that really allows us some clear seeing of where our body actually is. And I promise you, the more you practice this, the more your body will go into classical conditioning and relax. Now let's check in with low back here. And your low back is resting. So you're resting on your low back. It's called the plate of the sacrum. So the sacrum's resting on the floor. And then check that your shoulder blades are resting. And let's start to really move into back body awareness. So you're really tuning in to the bottoms of your feet, tuning into your low back, tuning into that curve. You don't want too much of a curve here, even if you're usually curvy, because what's going on is our spines will find some length here as we do this. So it's like a little chiropractic adjustment that we're giving ourselves. And then shoulders relax down. And then back of the head is heavy. Whether you're on a blanket or whether you're on the floor, you're on the bullseye of the back of your head. Now, if you haven't practiced this pose and your knees, comes a time when your knees line up perfectly with gravity and you can completely rest. If you're not there, that's fine. Take your feet out and then drop your knees in towards each other. If you're having low back pain, even if your knees are resting fine, go ahead and do this. So my knees are resting together, my feet are out. Notice that big deep breath that may come through. And then as we lie here, we begin to adjust. So right now, I'm gonna do like an itsy bitsy spider sort of thing and press into my elbows and lengthen my spine. So I'm lengthening my rib cage away from my hips because I felt the need there. So when we come into this pose, we may be up here like this, see my low back? And then eventually we start to melt, but then I get a little stuck. So you've got to scoot up a little bit. So take a nice deep breath here and let's just rest for a moment or two longer. Check in with your jaw and tongue. So our low back is a really big indication a lot of the times that we've been under quite a lot of stress. Sometimes our low back issues happen because we pick something up wrong and we weren't paying attention. And that's fine. Sometimes our low backs just start to ache because that's a power center of where, you know, our survival kind of shows up there. So we want to be really tender with ourselves and just realize, like, that's a place that's going to have a little bit of discomfort, and it's fine. We can unwind that. That's what's amazing about it. We can unwind that together. And we're doing it right now through this amazing constructive rest pose. Now, if you haven't taken your feet apart, go ahead and take your feet apart a little further than hip width distance. Lengthen or bend, take your knees directly on top of each other. So separate your knees. Now, if you're having low back issues, that's completely fine. You don't have to go into this, but you can test it. Now, when we move our legs, this is a brain train right here. When we move our legs, we must do it from our power center. If we don't, we're pulling rather than pushing our legs back to center. Okay, so we're gonna do some windshield wipes here. Watch me press my low back into the floor. That's because my belly's engaged, and then I'm just dropping one leg or both legs over to one side, engaging that belly and bringing the legs back through center, sweeping them over. And you can continue to move like this, just like I like to think about here. You can think about seaweed moving in water. It's just very slow, it's almost lazy in a really great way. So it's not lazy because our belly is so engaged here in our power center of bringing our legs across. If you haven't ever done this before with your belly engaged, then what you're noticing is that you're protecting your low back here. So it's this overuse pattern of using these tiny muscles in our low back versus the powerhouse of our bellies. I like to say about this that we're hitching a chihuahua to a dog sled. And then when we, of course, the chihuahua is not going to go far, and then we start to get frustrated. So what happens is that we hitch the correct thing to the dog sled. We hitch the husky to the dog sled when we use our low belly. Okay, come back to center. If it feels good, then you can press your low belly back down or low back down, and then bring your knees into your chest. Keep your hands around each knee. So my feet are separated here, and notice that I had to release my ankles. And then also I had to kind of release my legs. So you're not up here like this, you're down and relaxing. And then also just start to roll from side to side. You don't need such a belly engagement here because our legs are kind of using the momentum, but just feel how you're massaging your low back. Now again, if you have low back pain here, you may just be in constructive rest. But if it feels really good to do this, then go ahead and continue. So we're just going really easy today. I mean, all of this is a tune-up. It feels delicious, even if you've practiced with me multiple times or practiced yoga multiple times. This is much less about exercise and much more about getting to know ourselves. All right, now we engage our bellies because we have to do that in order to drop our feet back down. So again, we engage the powerhouse of the belly in order to move our legs. Now, engage your belly again and lengthen your legs slowly all the way out. Once you're all the way out, you can relax your legs down. Find that place that allows your shoulders to drop and then adjust. So I've got to kind of move my glutes around. I gotta scoot up a little bit because one heel's off my mat and one's on. So adjust so that you are from heels to the back of your head aligned as well as you can be. So notice if one heel has a little bit more weight than the other. Notice if one glute has a little bit more weight than the other, which mine does. Notice if your curve in your low back is excessive and really, maybe you're even scooping your glutes under. And then notice if the shoulder blade can drop down. So put your hands where best feels that, and then the back bullseye of the back of the head. Now let your feet flop. Let your feet flop. This is so good for your low back. And then again, that big breath might blossom, and that's what happens when we come into a state of parasympathetic, our heal, digest, nourish state. And we want to access that state if we're having low back pain, because that state is our healing state. So as we're doing all of this, we're also accessing this thing called the parasympathetic state. We're going out of fight, flight, freeze, appease, the sympathetic, into a parasympathetic state. That means you might get a little chilly as well, and that's perfectly normal. Now start to point and flex your feet. You can keep your feet wherever, but just start to point and flex. Notice how when you're flexing, that heel has a deep connection to the glute of each leg. Continue there. Notice if you started gripping in your jaw or tongue. So as you continue to point and flex, our psoas muscle is in the very center of our bodies. It's the center of the center. So I talk about this more in other places, but if we have a psoas that on both sides that is gripping, then our jaw also is gripping. If our psoas is out of whack, which most of us have that, we're going to have low back pain. So we're working with the psoas as we speak. The way that you spell that is P-S-O-A-S, by the way. Now, come back to center, let your feet flop, and then this time just almost like you're tapping your toes together. You're just rolling on the heels. You can do this in your bed too at night, and it really does let you sleep, and it also helps you wake up in the morning. So letting those big breaths come through. When I lie here for a while, what ends up happening is I hear some chiropractic adjustments happening. So we're working with our spines, of course, and then we're also working with the meridians of the body. All right, come back to center. Let your feet flop. Now, listen really carefully, because most of us have this habit where we bring our toes back towards the ceiling and then flex. We're not doing that because we don't need to engage our feet here. We're engaging this deep center body. When you're ready, press your heels into the floor. You may have to do each one at a time to make sure that you don't over-engage. Now, if you watch me do it, you can't tell that I'm doing it. That's what I want to see with you too. When you're ready, squeeze your glutes together. That makes your hips raise. So right now, we're engaging the posterior chain of our legs, which is heel up the hamstring into the glutes. Your glutes are your behind, by the way. Now, take that power center that I talked about earlier and press it towards the floor. You're not going to be touching the floor here because your glutes are engaged. That's fine, but our belly's engaged. Make sure that you have that belly engaged by feeling it. And then take your hands back to a relaxed place. Now from your chest, not the top of your shoulders. From your chest, press your shoulder blades into the floor and down. So we're doing it isometrically. Let's do it again. Press down, into the floor, and down. You can feel how your collarbones broaden and how your belly can engage even more fully. Now from the bullseye of your head, that's what we're pressing into. From the very back of your throat, you're doing this. So this is the tip of our spine. The back of our throat is where the tip of our spine is, right in front of that. So press your head into the floor and then up isometrically. Feel how strong you feel. And then start to notice if you're gripping anything. Jaw, tongue, eyebrows, fingers, toes, tops of your feet. So we're taking the power into the center. This is really wonderful because what we're doing here, if we flipped ourselves back up, we're back in standing pose. So all we've done is change our relationship to gravity, take a nice deep breath, and then we're going to move into this thing I call skillful relaxation. On your exhale, everything melts as much as possible at once. It feels like this melting sensation. And then what happens is feel your back body connecting to the floor more deeply. Feel how when you take that breath, you really have this kind of letting go sensation. Things that were gripping before may not be gripping anymore. So we'll take this one more time, and then this is incredibly helpful for waking up or going to bed. It wakes us up, but it also takes us into this deep state of relaxation. What you might have noticed also, which I'll cue this time, is how your low back feels. So when you're ready, press your heels into the floor without, I'm doing mine one at a time so I can make sure that I'm not overusing my feet. I want to tune up that back body. Now squeeze your glutes, your hips lift straight up. Engage your belly. So a better way to say this while we're lying down is that your rib cage knits towards your hip points. And then from your chest, press your shoulder blades into the floor. And then from the very back of your throat, press your head into the floor. Now we're breathing in the diaphragm here. The diaphragm is in between our rib cage, okay? So we can stay really strong in our belly and have these deep breaths move through in our diaphragm. That's how we're designed to move when we're active. Check in with gripping patterns. Is your jaw gripping? Is your tongue stuck to the roof of your mouth? You may not have ever noticed that before. However, those are patterns in our minds that tell us we're really anxious. And they're patterns that are now habits, and then they would just continue. Those things show up in discomforts. So we're just starting to look at all the discomforts. Now, when you're ready, take a nice deep inhale. And then exhale and relax. Everything melts at once. Now, you might have to melt things separately. That's just showing you that, this is all practice, right? So eventually what happens is everything melts at once because it's skillful relaxation. I always say that we can all engage really quickly, but to relax instantaneously is very skillful. You might agree with me there. All right, point and flex your feet again. Just feel how you're starting to work things into your low body. Maybe you're taking some ankle rotations with your feet. Now, engage your belly. So really engage your belly because we're about to move a leg here. I want you to understand, we do not move our legs without engaging our belly. And feel how strong that is. Now, bend your right knee. Keep that right knee bent and just foot sitting on the floor. Now, upper body stays in this really nice lying down pattern. And when you're ready, we're going to work from the top down now. So press your head into the floor and feel how that is. All this is really stretching and feeling really good in my center body. Now, it's not comfortable to lie here for a while, but again, it's all practice. And we're keeping our brains really active here. So shoulder blades press into the floor from the chest. Belly engages, and now squeeze this bent leg glute, the right glute. Squeeze that right glute. Now what I want you to feel is when you're squeezing that right leg glute, how much space you get in the low back. So if we engage our glutes and we engage our belly, our low backs can rest. That's a rule. It's lying down, it's sitting, it's standing, it's walking. When our glutes are engaged and our low belly is engaged, our low back can take a break. So if you're having low back pain, really use that rule throughout the day. All right, now keep your right glute engaged and then squeeze your left glute as well. So you're going to feel different things from right to left. Your right glute is stretched because our leg is bent. Your left glute is not, so you're going to have more access in your brain to your left glute, and you still have to continue thinking about stretching your right glute or engaging your right glute. Check in with jaw, in with belly, shoulder blades, back of the head. Now, keep your shape, and when you're ready, exhale, relax everything down. Feel how that big breath comes in. It could be there for you. And then notice how your low back feels maybe a little less uncomfortable. Now you can stay here with your leg if you have any hip things going on. If you feel like you can take your leg out to the side, then definitely do that. And come into a half butterfly here with your right side. Again, all that's directed by your belly in the beginning. Now you can relax, take a nice deep breath. And when you're ready, all we're doing is squeezing our right glute. This may not have been something that you've ever done. This is the ultimate low back healer, I find in my own low back. So you're squeezing your right glute and relaxing it. Now you're not doing it fast. You're not doing it like sparking. You're doing it, engaging, noticing what you're doing. So if you're engaging your glute and your leg's lifting, you're not engaging your glute enough. What's going on is that you're using your leg to do the work of your glutes. Again, it's that Chihuahua versus the Husky pulling the dog sled. So we're just rehitching things. It's strength you already have. We're just rehitching. So you're just going, you're engaging and you're releasing and you're noticing. It's all about noticing. You've got a lot of intensity in the inner groin. You've got a lot of intensity in the hip point. And as you relax, just notice what that does. As you engage, notice what that does. So what we're doing here is we're noticing the ripple effect of what's happening. And then relax. And then this time, engage and stay engaged with your right glute. And then engage your left glute as well. So again, there's not a lot that you can see happening in my body, even though there's a lot happening to me. There's just not a lot you can see. So if my leg's up here lifted, or wherever your leg may be, you know, that might just be your hip. But if you're lifting your leg at all here, then you're not in your glute. Take a nice deep breath and then relax. Engage your belly here and lengthen from your belly your right leg all the way out. Point and flex your feet, move them around. Keep your belly engaged and then bring your right knee into your chest. Now, you can clasp around your shin or you can clasp around the back of your leg here. Some of us are going to be more like here, and that's fine because our knee will be a little further away from us. Doesn't really matter where you are. Once you get to where you are, as much as possible, drop through that leg and flop through that foot. So right foot, let's take some ankle rotation here. Get into your toes. It just feels really good. We really pay a lot of attention to our feet. There's a lot of bones. So in our hands and in our feet, half of our bones, a little over half of our bones are in our hands and feet. So that's telling us how important they are. Okay, come to stillness there. And then when you're ready, press your shoulder blades into the floor. Bend your elbows if you can. So what we're doing is we're taking our energy into our chest and into our upper arms, our biceps. So our breath here is in our rib cage as much as possible. We work with that a lot more. This is all practice. And when you're ready, resist. So what you're doing is you're bending your elbows to bring your right knee towards you, and then you're pressing your right knee away from you. Keep your left leg floppy. Feel how that feels and engage your belly if it's not already there. So your low back comes towards the floor. Feel how that feels to engage the back of the leg. So that's what we're working with, the right back of your leg. And then again, pressing shoulder blades down, bending your biceps takes this out of wanting to overuse our shoulders and neck. So we're strong in the center of our bodies. We've got a lot of sensation going on here. And as you hold here, squeeze your left glute. Keep your belly really engaged here and then press your left heel into the floor. Feel how you're doing that from your belly and not your foot. So right now what it looks like, if you look at me, I don't look very engaged even though I'm shaking, okay? Nice deep breath, keep your shape and relax. Feel what goes on. Feel the ... Okay, release your hands, engage your belly so that you can put your foot on the floor and slide your leg out. Now notice side to side differences. You may notice that in your low back, you may notice that in your legs. It's incredibly effective, very, very quickly. All right, this time, engage your belly, bend your left knee, let your right leg stay floppy. When you're ready, press that low back into the floor, towards the floor, if it doesn't get all the way there, and squeeze your left glute. So my left glute is not as in tune with my brain as my right. You might not have realized that you have one side that does all the work and the other side just kind of hangs out and is along for the ride. So what we're doing is we're realigning that. So when you go out for a walk or you get on your bike or you go to the pool or you're standing in line at the grocery store, you're more aligned. Right? Even when you exercise, when you go to the gym and exercise. So that's what we're doing. We're brain training so that your body picks up. We're moving into the wisdom of our bodies and how our bodies operate. Take a nice deep breath, keep your shape and then relax. Notice that you kind of roll onto your low back when that happens. And then if you want to stay here, you can. If you have any hip things going on, then go ahead and stay here. The other thing you can do is grab a block and prop your outside of your knee if you do want to drop out into half butterfly on your left side. So when you're ready, engage your belly and squeeze your left glute. So your left glute, again, we're just squeezing, engaging, and then relaxing. So engaging and relaxing. Now we're not doing that as rote. We're doing that to explore and get really curious what happens. So my left glute is what's called inhibited a little bit more. So inhibited in physical therapy terms means that it's not firing in your brain quite as well as the other side. So, and that's completely fine. You might find that you're squeezing your right side to try to do the work of your left side. Your right side is facilitated. That means that it's too attached and it's overdoing the work. So what we're doing is we're coming to this place of balance, not too much, not too little. I like to call it the Goldilocks zone. And then just squeezing and releasing. We're gathering information here. When we squeeze, what does it feel like? Do we engage our jaw? That's huge. Do we engage our feet and toes? That's really big information. Does it feel really intense in the inner hip? Do we feel it in our inner groin? Yes, we all do, by the way. And this time engage, and then squeeze your right glute as well. So both glutes are squeezing, they just feel different. We're getting a lot of space around here and in our low back. Anytime your low back is not feeling good, I can almost guarantee you're not engaging belly or glutes enough. So when you feel a lot of discomfort in your low back during these things and it pops up, it's not something that was there before, but it pops up, then you need to assess where you can re-engage, whether it's your belly or your glutes. Nice deep breath and relax. And then engage your belly, slide your left leg out alongside your right. You can move around, you can flop, flip, whatever you want to do, point, flex. Engage your belly again, slide your heel back in with your belly, bring that left knee into towards your torso. Take whatever clasp of the hands you need to. Let's move that left leg around, or that left ankle around. And then press your shoulders into the floor from your chest, bend your biceps if you can. Drop, let your leg be floppy. Both legs are floppy here for the moment. We're really engaged in upper body, but not in our patterns, not in our jaw, not in our tongue, not in the top of our shoulders. You may want to take one hand over and feel the top of your shoulders. Again, our breath is moving into our rib cage, and then resist. So biceps engage and pull your leg towards you, and then leg presses away from the upper back of your leg. Notice how that's just kind of naturally pressing your low back into the floor. Check in with your toes, check in with your jaw, check in with your tongue. I can release my leg a little bit. I don't need all that energy there. So the way I like to talk about this and why I have you release all those things is because we're giving energy to the muscles that are meant to be working. So if we have our cell phone on and all the apps are up, our cell phone it's going to die much more quickly, and it's not going to be powerful. So that's what we're doing. We're turning all the apps off that don't really need to be working here. So this is brain training. All right, squeeze your right glute. It's going to feel very different than the left side, of course. And then from your heel, press that heel down into the floor to engage your back of your leg. So we're feeling, again, a lot of shaking because it's very deep internal work. However, it just looks like I'm lying around with my knee in. Take a nice deep breath. Let your exhale melt you down and just feel how that low back is responding. Really powerful work. Engage your belly. Drop your left foot to the floor. Keep your belly engaged as you slide your left heel down. Notice if that big breath comes through. Now we're gonna do this 10 times. This is for our low back. We'll squeeze our glutes together and then relax them. So notice as you squeeze, which one wants to do all the work and which one doesn't want to do much work. And then if you can engage them equally and relax them equally. You probably cannot right now, and that's completely fine. However, with practice, it does come online. And I like to say comes online because it goes from being off to being on, in like quantum fast. So continue here, just squeezing and relaxing. So the only thing that's happening here is that your hip points are moving up and down in space. Jaw is soft, tongue is nice and relaxed, gaze is soft. Continue here, letting breath move through your body, feeling as you squeeze those glutes, how much space your low back gets. The hinge of the jaw is releasing, wherever your shoulders are, where they can relax, they're relaxing. Now we find all these habits start to happen, that our shoulders are nice and stuck up when we're engaging our glutes. Yeah, that's all information. It's not that we're doing anything wrong. It's just that we can do things more attentively. I call it joyful action. We're just taking 3 more squeezes. And again, be attentive to your breath. Also, just happened to me, your stomach may growl because we're in a rest, digest, heal state. And then this last time, let's hold those glutes and then engage our bellies. So bellies just, rib cage just moves towards hip. Belly's engaged, glutes are engaged, shoulders are dropping down, back of the head is heavy, heels are heavy. Squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. If your back's hurting, then guess what? That's incredible information for you because that means you're overdoing it. Nice deep breath, relax. And then engage your belly one more time. Bring your knees back. Lift them all the way up. So you can do 2 things here. You can keep your belly engaged and do tiny windshield wipes like this. Just back and forth. That actually feels really good. So let's just all start there. And then maybe they get wider as you go. Maybe they don't get wider as you go, and that's fine too. You're doing good work as it is. Keep that belly engaged, however. Keep that low back engaged. Bring your knees into your chest. Flop your feet and legs, and then just roll from side to side. And then drop your feet back down. Let's all turn onto our side. It just feels really good. If you're having some issues, you might take a little while to sit up here, and that's fine. You can just follow my voice. And then when you're ready, let's all meet in what I call the noble seat here. So 4 noble acts of standing well, which we started out with, lying well, sitting well, and walking well. That's the architecture of what we do. So sitting well, we just find our space underneath of us, whatever that looks like. You can be even sitting on a stool if you'd like. So we have the same principles when we're standing and sitting. Belly up and in, shoulders down, head back. Ears, shoulder, hips alignment. And from our elbows, let's bend our arms, palms together. Let's all take that nice deep breath to seal our time together. Thank you so much.